What is it, Wednesday, December 14th. The Operations Committee is meeting here. Myself, Tricia Fidrich, Mel Campbell are here. No other board members are currently present. And we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. We're going to be found over by the door. Under indivisible, related to justice for all. All right, we need an approval of the agenda.
That we approve the agenda. They can just judge the December 5th meeting minutes public. With the exception of,
Mel, do you feel like seconding that? Seconded by Mel Campbell, all in favor? Aye. Mel's making a silent eye with his face. And no public comments. So we are right into Title IX. And is that who's going to be leading that discussion? Wendy?
we have construction update.
Oh, do we have construction update? Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong. Thank you.
Good afternoon. And thank you for the opportunity to provide the super executive summary construction updates. Long lead times and inflationary cost increases continue to be encountered. Actually, I'm starting to see a little glimmer of hope with some of the recent consumer price index figures that were just released, where we're seeing a slight decrease. That's the direction that we want to see it in. There are 8 yellow traffic lights that appear in this month's project updates. 5 of those have been previously reported and continue to be monitored and managed by project managers. Those 5 projects are Battery Creek High School, which is slides 5 and 7 in your report. Robert Smalls International Academy, slides 8 through 10. There's 2 maintenance projects on slide 11 and Bluffton High School, slide 33. The 3 new yellow traffic lights that are included this month, one is for May River High School. Alexander has identified a potential schedule concern associated with the completion of that athletic scope. When you look at what our graduation schedule will be next year, as well as when the first football game for 2023 has been scheduled on August 18th, and it just narrows down our window. So he's making sure that everything is coordinated to be executed. And just because it's a concern, we wanted to do the right thing and put a yellow light on it to make the operations committee aware of. The other 2 yellow lights are for playground manufacturing and material delivery delays. They're going to push the completion of Okatee Elementary, slide 12, and Pritchardville Elementary, slide 45 playgrounds. Where they're going to finish out in January. Providing a brief update for the St. Helena Elementary School Gymnasium. That's on slides 60 and 61. The PA and intercom, the bidirectional amplifier and radios are operational. Construction cabling is scheduled to begin this month, and the pressure washing of the exterior that you have to take place over winter break. The ESSER bipolar ionization projects and volatile projects on slides 79 and 80. Installations are actually scheduled to begin tomorrow. At battery will start the bipolar installations there, and at Broad River Elementary for project closeouts, the material submitted reflects that under FY 2018 8% capital projects, that there was 2 remaining projects that needed to be closed out earlier this week. I'm pleased to report that we closed one of them out. So now we're down to just the remaining project, which the work's been completed on. That's the HVAC improvements at Kusaw Elementary. So as soon as we can get that completed, that'll complete the remaining work for FY 2019. Under FY 2020, 8% capital improvement projects. There's 5 projects that we're working on closing out and wrapping up the remaining scopes. On the referendum projects, that's slides 82 to 84. Information is provided for 24 projects. There's 15 projects that have been completed to date. I want to also ask Robin to pull up what is attachment 3 in the materials that we sent out. That's the monthly referendum projects 219 financial summary. In that report, you'll see some of the lines have various color coding on them. And the lines that are color coded in green that you're seeing on the screen there, that's another way that we're tracking the closing out and completion of those commitments. So as you see this report going forward, you'll see more and more of the lines being transitioned into the green shading to indicate that that's been completed. But there's 321 lines in that report, and there's 94 lines shaded in green that reflect the various financial commitments. Providing a quick overview on the referendum financial expenditures. They now total through the end of November $180,577,057. This equals approximately 48% of the total approved funds, which were where we are right now is 375,710,000. That's the total funding. Funds paid and committed to date total roughly $322.9 million, which equates to 86% of the overall total approved funds, and that leaves us remaining available funds that total $52.8 million. No contingency or bond premium funds were used in November, and in that $52.8 million figure of funds that remain, there is $9.7 million of it that's associated with remaining contingency and bond premium. Share is under community outreach. That's slide 94. Last week at our small international academy, we held the topping out ceremony at campus, and I think it was well attended and well received by everybody. And that concludes my executive summary report.
Questions?
Ms. Fidrich?
And Robert, so the discussion we had last night about the graduation dates, does any of the changes that we made last night, does that help with this Main River High School?
Well, it does help because, well, Main River is at the front of the line right after the street.
So by doing that, though, it's opens a little bit. Okay, all right.
No, Alexander is met with or one community this.
That's where he is tonight. He's not going to be able to join us at the clock meeting because at Main River High School, he's attending the SIC meeting to share information.
Let them know a little bit about the concern of completing one.
Okay.
Campbell? You have questions? I'm just gonna jump right in. So I'm sorry, I was checking on something else. Did you say that, so the field house for the Hilton Head High School is gonna be received in December, but it has not been received yet? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not sure if I followed you. What's something you're looking at?
30? I didn't realize we hadn't gotten the GMP for the field house.
We have not.
Yeah, it's supposed to be received in December, but we haven't received it yet.
Yeah.
Are you optimistic that it was in September?
Because I have a meeting on Tuesday with all the project managers. And I've provided Robert a list of all the tentative board agenda items for the second meeting in January. Once again, the first meeting is swearing in of the board members, but we've got like 6 or 7 items and it's planned to come to that board meeting.
And then construction schedule begin Q1 2023. So that would be in the next 3 months.
Yes.
Okay. How's that going to work? Because you see the traffic issues with the school. Are we planning for that?
Those are that's good. The reason that people around. As they work at the field, they'll have to make sure it's coordinated.
Yeah, we will project kickoff meetings at the beginning, and that's one of the things that we touched on is laying down the groundwork of, when does the contractor need to, limit the availability of receiving material deliveries so that they don't occur.
And if we're at Speed Street, right, we landed finally on by the swamp field, that's what they call it, right?
They call it
Actually,
Lacrosse practice field, and there's like the soccer and field.
what we call it, soft field, is where the field out is now, it's right beside it. If it's any concession field. So actually, there'll be like a pathway between the two field houses. Field house one and field house two. And the thought is the home team, the new one, and the visitors will be in the field house.
The last one I saw was several months ago, so I didn't do this. The field house I thought was going to be across the street.
There have been some talk, but no, they decided. Where it is now is for the most part, they're right there side by side.
better.
Oh, I think it's great. I just didn't realize. Okay, thank you. Oh, Ms. Goodrich?
We got, a text message from someone today about a major pothole over at Ladies Island Middle School. I didn't have a chance to go by there, prior to coming down here, but are you aware and I read part of it?
Yes, I know Mr. Dixie contacted us because of several potholes, so that was last week. So I know that the work order is in place. I don't know the status of it. I can check in.
Okay, so, it was Alice Howard, County Council rep, and he contacted me because he was about this pothole. So could you check into that? And this is my last final official.
Yes,
Yeah. But I said, perfect timing, I'm going to operations committee.
I'll see if I can answer these stats.
Thank you.
And I asked about the air conditioner. This.
I know, I think he got held up. Great. Yeah, because I think we had some delays on items. That we actually have a crane and over to freight.
That helped. Okay. So I just wanted- Oh, thank you. All right. This.
Thank you.
All right. We have some administrative regulations.
I'll explain how. We just use this. Wendy.
Huh? Was it simple? This is Title IX.
The board.
Okay. We can go, I mean, I'll use my folders. So I'll need a folder. If things change, quite a bit.
Ms. Walton, did you want me to go ahead here? I didn't know if Kiki was on the line with us.
Yes. And she wants to go.
Yeah.
Okay, Wendy, are you starting?
If that's all right with Ms. Walt, whatever Ms. Walt wants me to do.
Wendy, that's fine. Kiki is here.
Yeah, I can get started on it. So what we have done in this administrative regulation is that we have combined our prior regulations that were separate, one for student and one for employees. And we now have them in one form. And we now have Ms. Whitten acting as a Title IX coordinator. We previously had two Title IX coordinators, but now Ms. Whitten is assigned to this position to be in charge of all of Title IX, and she's been working very hard in this area to make sure that everybody's having the appropriate training not only at district level, but at all the schools. And we worked with the institutional compliance solutions and also had Kathy Mahoney, one of our outside attorneys, double check our work. These sections that are in this administrative regulation, we checked to make sure that they were in compliance with the Code of Federal Regulations, and the majority of these provisions that are included here, the section of the Code of Regulations, it's 106.45, and we made sure that we were in compliance with those regs. There have been some new regs that have been proposed, but they have not been put into effect yet. So this administrative regulation is dealing with the present law. We've included definitions of sexual harassment, fondling, incest, statutory rape, dating violence, stalking, domestic violence, and then definitions related to sexual harassment. What is consent? What is coercive conduct? Incapacitation, the reasonable person standard, emotional distress. And when you go through here, there are other defined terms that are required in the law, such as actual knowledge, business day, complainant, educational program, supportive measures. Those are offered to both the complainant and the respondent before after the filing of a formal complaint, or where no formal complaint has been filed. And with respect to the reporting of this, we've included now reporting, in addition to reporting to us at the district, reporting to the coordinator or to a BCSD employee, we've listed out the different law enforcement agencies in our community: the Sheriff's Office, City of Beaufort Police Department, the Town of Bluffton Police Department, Town of Port Royal, as well as the complainant has the right to file with the Office for Civil Rights if they would like to. And then the procedures go through here that Kiki's been having training, as I said, at the schools, as well as the district, how you respond to the complaint, how you file a formal complaint. It's very specific requirements, how one can be dismissed, what is the procedure and the burden of proof, how is evidence gathered. She's been training investigators within our district. There's provisions for the notice of the allegations. The Title IX coordinator, Kiki's responsible for providing notice of allegations to the party, to talk about the rights and their options, the grievance process, the informal resolution process, identities of the parties. And then investigation of the formal complaint. As I said, Kiki's been training individuals to serve as investigators and what they have to do. And the Code of Federal Regulations in 106.45 talks about how this information is obtained and how it's inspected and reviewed. And both parties have that opportunity to review the evidence. It also includes not only, inculpatory, but what's exculpatory as well. And the parties have the opportunity to review that information. Then there's a question and answer period. It's a very long, involved process now to go through one of these complaints and the resolution. Then we have what is excluded, determination about responsibility. There can be an appeal. The appeal procedures are spelled out. And then there's an informal resolution process, and that gives an opportunity to have mediation, facilitated dialogue, conflict coaching, restorative resolution, have an agreement of the parties. And then both parties have to agree to that informal resolution. And there are also requirements for record keeping. That information has to be kept for 7 years in order to be compliant with state and federal laws. It also talks about that in the event that a person has filed a complaint for Title IX violation, that we don't retaliate against that individual in any process at all during the time of this. And then this is something that's been added that I think is very helpful for everybody, and those are the applicable South Carolina laws. And our Title 16, which is the criminal code, in here is included the definition for domestic violence, and there's more, there are different degrees for domestic violence. Some of them become felonies. Incest, criminal sexual conduct in the first degree, criminal sexual conduct in the second degree, another felony, criminal sexual conduct in the third degree, criminal sexual conduct with a minor. And we also have sexual battery with a student. And this law went into effect here in South Carolina in July 1, 2010. And many of the cases that I prosecuted, just an aside, but when I was a prosecutor with the Department of Ed, this involved, inappropriate relationships with educators, with students. Then there's procedures for resolution of the non-harassment Title IX discrimination complaints. And then again, it goes through the procedure. How do you investigate it? How do you give notice? What's the timing? The investigation has to be done within 60 days. At the end, the investigator drafts a report, works with the Director of Human Resources. That report's given to the complainant and the respondent. Then they can appeal if they desire to, and respond at any time, can resolve the investigation by accepting responsibility for their misconduct. And then there's like I said, there is an informal resolution again. So it's very involved, and it incorporates, in August of 2022, those regulations first went into effect on August 15th of 2022. And at that time, we used one administrative reg for students, one administrative reg for our staff. And this way, it was suggested to us that we combine it into one document. And then we also added at the end the coherent governance manual. So what's happened here, it's like totally rewritten from the old documents. It's totally redone. And Ms. Walton, if you could please add your input on this. I know you work very closely in our human resources and in our discrimination. Please include what I forgot to say.
Wendy, I think you've done a good job. Our goal was to make sure that we were compliant with the law. We had something in place, but our relationship with the community. So our goal was, with regards to the new regulation, to make sure that one, we can build the capacity of our team to be able to meet the requirements of the regulation. We go from a 5-page administrative regulation to over 30 pages. And a part of that process is to make sure that we are taking the right steps, both with regards to staff and students. So the first thing was to make sure that we train, because in applying this is not as simple as just, I want to take notes of what's going on. So it was about getting everyone to understand the basic knowledge with regards to Title IX administrative regulations, the federal law. So we did actual training with all of our school administrators, both assistant principals were invited last spring to attend the training prior to, because this was on the books in August when we tried to get this pushed through at the time that the new regulations were required to be out. So our focus was to make sure our folks understood what was coming into effect. Since then, they can also go back and train Title IX investigators for each school building, as well as at the district office, because our goal is to make sure at the lowest level we can investigate and determine whether this rises to the level of Title IX, and that we adhere to the process that's outlined in our administrative regulation. We have been focusing really truly on the general awareness of Title IX, making sure that people know how to make it work, that it's not hidden. So we have actually updated our website, so this information is on the website. Once this administrative regulation is updated and approved, then we will move forward with adding that to the website. We have updated our Title IX complaint form. It used to be a separate complaint form. We have an online job form that can be completed. That can be completed. A person can provide this information anonymously, or they can self-identify and what the situation is. This gives me an opportunity as Title IX coordinator to review, to determine whether it actually meets the criteria of Title IX, whether it is harassment or non-harassment. And it gives us an opportunity just to kind of get ahead of the investigative process. So we are working closely with school teams on a regular basis as we discuss these complaints that come in, and making sure that if it is truly a Title IX, that we take the necessary steps to be able to to adhere to the process.
We, okay, one of the things that was a hot topic was, all school. And our, peers up in the state, everybody wanted to know what was every district gonna do about that. Because now it's such a big deal. You can no longer just say, okay, I'm the tech coordinator, and when something happens, we reported it, and so I did a brief investigation. We decided at Beaufort County that we want someone to keep it. Because of all the issues. And we need to be on top of it so that we never out of step. And we need to change it in our district, the language, the vocabulary. What is Title IX? Does everybody understand Title IX? Use the Title IX. So if anyone ever walked into the district and said, who's your Title IX coordinator? Every employee in the district is on that board. So that's what we started last summer. And with that, with all the training, I think we have done a pretty decent job of getting staff members to understand what we're up against with Title IX so that students, employees, parents understand that our system is in place to have a decent place.
And a big part of our work with regards to that was partnering with ICS. They really talked about earlier, institutional compliance solutions. They have done a lot of professional development with us. My first year as Title IX coordinator, doing a lot of reading, a lot of professional development to make sure that I had a thorough understanding from a Title IX coordinator perspective, and then building the capacity of staff members. So we work very closely with them. We have also the ability to utilize Title IX University through them. So we're able to, for those administrators who need to, so if we bring someone on after the training has occurred in professional development they provided, we have the ability to do online training for them as well. Myself, Mr. Hunt, and a couple of other district staff members went to a conference to train as Title IX investigators. So we're certified through ICS. They have a team of people gurus when it comes to Title IX. They're experts in the area. And, it has been an opportunity for us to really build based on the current regulation, and it puts us in a better position so that the regulations that are being proposed from the Biden administration that will go into effect potentially next year, those are still in a question and answer period, but once they go into effect, we're not playing so much catch up to be able to meet those requirements. Right now, we have the current regulations that were in effect August of 2022, and that gives us an opportunity to be solid with regards to those and then prepare for whatever comes next.
So, Kiki, I don't remember when you came and you first told the board about Title IX. Was it a year and a half ago or?
Yes.
Okay, well, my heart was set aflutter because it just, this was huge. It is, so I just commend you for, that was a huge amount to look at. And it sounds like you've attacked it, you step by step, climbed it, and set the whole district in a good stead. That if something were to happen, processes and information and numbers of people, I mean, I applaud you for that, because that, when you shared that with the board, that meeting, I thought, I mean, it almost seemed insurmountable. So thank you for that. So I do have one question, I think I might answer it. So if something happens in the school, right? And, we have our discipline matrix. So when does it go from that to Title IX? And you might have said it when you said it's going to rise to a level of Title IX.
Sure.
So can you just talk a little bit about the narrative between those?
What we've done is updated our discipline matrix. We worked with this partly with the student services team this summer.
Mhm.
So now anything that may be applicable to Title IX now has in the first offense, it has to be that it is they contact the Title IX coordinator for the district. We have a discussion of this meets the criteria, and it has to rise to a certain level. So it has to be severe, pervasive, objectively offensive. All of those combined in order for it to rise to the level of Title IX. So if the student violates, let's say, groping.
Yeah.
So if the student gropes another student and it happens one time and it does not happen again, that does not rise to the level of Title IX. But if it continues and it is pervasive and it is offensive to that other student, then that's where we get into it meets the criteria of Title IX, and we can then therefore, so when we have the conversations with administrators, our conversation has to be, if it is Title IX, they cannot The regulations don't allow them to discipline until we've gone through their time. So that will give, and we have to explain this to both the complainant and the respondent on the front end. And we've been in situations where we've had to have that hard conversation to say, we understand that this is fresh, but this is what our policy dictates. This is what our process is with regards to the federal law for Title IX, and this is how it's going to happen. So we put a strong emphasis on making sure that we're completely transparent with parents and students so that they understand that this is not going to be something that just goes away immediately. There is a 10-day period of notification. There's a 60-day investigation period. There are 2 other 10-day periods after that. So it potentially takes a long time for the process to happen. Our goal with having more people trained as investigators was to be able to shorten that process as much as possible. Because if we do have a situation where we have to do an emergency review, or if it's a staff member and we have to do administratively, we want to be able to have flexibility to do that as quickly as possible to ensure the safety of all. I hope that answered the question.
No, it absolutely did. So this is the event that happens, and if it rises to the level of 10-9, then there is no discipline needed out.
During that process, but towards the end, and it says in the regulation, what can happen is for a student, it can be a recommendation up to expulsion. And a staff member can be a recommendation of termination based on the facts of the case.
That could be really hard for parents to understand that.
But we take time, we meet individually. So if a student calls me and I say, yeah, this rises to the level of Title IX, we meet with that parent immediately. Because our goal is not just to have the administrator have a conversation with the parent. They need to understand that from a district level, we are also taking this very seriously. This is what the process will look like. I just had a meeting with a middle school parent recently, and what her response to me was, it felt good to be able to have somebody to be able to, one, explain the process to me, but then to also let me know that my is not falling on deaf ears. That they're just like, oh, we'll investigate it and nothing ever happened. So she understands that we take this work very seriously.
Not really. I'm concerned though with what qualifies. Yeah, what qualifies.
So if there's a number of items in here that would make a situation kind of different. So it could be sexual harassment, it could be following incest, exploration, dating violence, domestic violence. So let's start on the definition. Start on page 4 of the draft that you have on page 4, and go all the way to page 9. Because the goal for us is to make sure that a person who reads this understands everything. We want people to be able to see in black and white what does the regulation require. So that means including the definition. So if a parent goes to our website and says, I really need to figure out whether this is a situation that is Title IX, because the conversations that we've had with parents, they realize that when it's come to another student, there's a student on the other side of this. I'm making a complaint, but my child is a student. There's another student that's being impacted by this. So the purpose for us was to make sure that our policy put it out there that applies for both students and staff. These are the definitions for Title IX. Now, in order for these situations, so if it is a sexual assault, so if there's an allegation of a rape or anything that meets that definition, then we have to determine is it severe, pervasive, objectively offensive. And with regards to some of these, that does not mean that it has to happen more than once. There are some lower level situations like fondling, groping, those situations that can be reported, that can be inappropriate touching on one hand, but based on who you talk to, it could rise to something more.
And then I guess as a follow-up to Mr. Campbell's question, how does it interact with Title IX with criminal?
So it runs parallel.
So there are no complaints that are Title IX but not criminal?
There could be. So a parent could choose, or an individual could choose not to move forward with the
So
criminal.
you say on
The investigation is on purpose.
report to you, and then you would also.
We would bring in law enforcement. So and if they make the decision, so they have the ability to make the decision. I want to move forward with this case. That's their decision. So we have a situation where a student was accused of inappropriately touching another young lady on the bus that involved choking. Law enforcement moved forward with the choking, but they did not see anything in their investigation that determined that this child had done anything with criminal sexual conduct. They did not move forward with that. We continue to move forward with our Title IX case.
I think we're forward to Title IX, but so that's what I guess I'm saying. So
They don't answer.
They don't intersect, but they went parallel.
They do.
So you guys continue to pursue, the individual, even though criminally he's been cleared of sexual assault. You guys continue to.
Well, it was criminal, so yes. Yeah. Because for us, when the student reported, if there are two complainants in this particular situation, one responded. So this is the complainant of the victims, the respondent is technically the offender. So the two complainants came forward with very similar allegations against one child who really responded. With that, law enforcement did an investigation on their initial report. They made a determination. We, as a district, still had to move forward with the Title IX complaint because they requested a formal complaint. They did not want an informal resolution, which they had the option. So with that, we have to continue. So the school administrators are still doing their due diligence with regards to their, to their investigation. So they're meeting any witnesses, any students, and also contacting teachers. Once they compile an investigative report, they will then turn that over to myself. We have two district trained decision makers, Kaylee Yinger and Nicholas Flowers, who are both trained as decision makers through ICS. So they're trained on the basics of Title IX, Title IX investigation, as well as decision making, because they have to look at it from a neutral perspective and say, okay, based on the information provided in this investigative report from the initial complaint up until the end, this is what we see. Here is our recommendation. This student is, did not violate Title IX, and there is no sanction. The student did violate Title IX. We recommend that we go back to the district administrative regulation for discipline, and that student can be suspended, recommended for alternative placement or expulsion. Law enforcement is all that. Yes. There's no requirement for law enforcement to be involved in every case. It is generally the victim or the complainant who makes that decision, or the guardian, family guardian.
How many students, I'm not between teacher and student, because I feel like it's a different, how many students in Title IX?
So,
Just a ballpark,
so I'm gonna say right now we have about 15 open.
but it's like from a year to year, is it more than 100?
So this is our first year implementing this policy and process. So our process has changed. From the time that I took over Title IX, it was a report, and there may be that the school investigated, but they didn't know I need to take this to a Title IX coordinator. So that's why we focus on making sure that they understand the basics of Title IX, so that they understand, oh wait, this is a situation that might, Title IX, we need to check in with PG to make sure.
Right, so my question is more, like,
I can't say, honestly, can't tell you what, from year to year, going forward, I will be able to answer that question.
we didn't track this formula.
So there were some situations that schools did not realize and met Title IX criteria, and so it was not reported to a Title IX. It may have been just dealt with as a disciplinary incident in the school. So we could look back at our discipline report and say, you know what, we had these accusations or these situations that were violations of the code of conduct that may have fallen into Title IX, but unfortunately, because they were not reported as a Title IX violation, we did not know. So the police came out, that's when we had to pivot and make sure we got all of these things in place.
So one of these questions, you talked about like gag on 24/7. What do we do about complaints off home property at a party, a sleepover? Can we handle those?
So if it's Title IX, it has to be under our jurisdiction. So it has to be, so if it's on a field trip, if it is a field trip out of the country, then we can't do anything. It has to be within the United States under our purview. So we have to be the responsible parties for that.
So if someone reports an incident at a party on Saturday night,
Fortunately, it's not Title IX, but we would advise the parent, this is what you can do. This doesn't rise to Title IX, but here are the options that you have with regards to reporting. So you can contact the local municipalities for law enforcement and move forward that way, but it does not meet Title IX.
Mr. Cook had initially emailed saying he wanted to speak. We're talking about Title IX. Then he thought that it was only about employees. And so he's listening to the conversation because what he wanted to speak about had to do with schools. So now he is requesting to speak because he wants to have public comments because it's more than about employees. So we want to.
I'll make a motion that we allow Mr. Cook to speak and then the committee can decide what you guys want to do. I'm fine with that. Okay, give him 3 minutes.
Just to be clear, if you're, this is not the new proposed, this is.
No, they're still proposed, they're not,
Right,
there's a
a
whole
bunch of other stuff out there.
they're not locked, if we can't do anything with it, we only follow the law.
I just want to make sure that that is.
That's too far. Encompassing.
So those are still in the question and answer period. So once they become law, so once they're signed into law, then we have to update our policy to make sure, and our procedures to make sure we use it.
That's once all that goes into effect.
Yes.
You didn't ask me.
Yes, if it does go into effect. But it's still in the question and answer period. And from my understanding, there's been a lot of questions that have been posed, so.
298-3412.
No.
I find it also encouraging again. That everything, there's even a thought of a timeline on the school level, it will be reported to you.
Yes.
Instead of it being.
Hello, David.
Internally, and so.
Hello, David. Did you still want to speak now for public comments since it does, or what is your, yes? Yes, sir. Hold on, I'm gonna put you on speakerphone. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon, committee members. I appreciate you giving me a chance to speak at this late minute, but the only reason I contacted Robin was because the conversation morphed from Title IX in regards to employment to Title IX for students, which was not on the agenda, and that's what I had planned to speak about. So there is a direct correlation between books with sexually explicit materials in the schools and the sexual exploitation of children and sexual assaults. I will find the reports that connect the two in order to give you a better idea of what's in front of you in regards to everything that's connected. Some industries that label books with sexually explicit material and hopefully keeping down the number of sexual assaults in the schools. Thanks so much for giving me a couple of minutes. Y'all have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Administrative standpoint, that Title IX, it just says administrative regulation HR 3. I don't think it's about employees only. Just to make sure we're in compliance.
No, it's employees and students.
I just make sure that it's not compliance with the.
Yes, it's on applicability. This administrative regulation applies to students and employees as follows.
That's okay. Good. Right. So, Mr. Campbell, you said some more questions. Okay. Yeah, my first, but then Mr. Smith, how are you?
What is
Institutional compliance. So they are partners with regards to Title IX. So they have provided professional development for both myself as a Title IX coordinator, but all of the training that we have done with regards to Title IX. We wanted to bring in someone who are experts in the area versus us providing the training. So our focus has been on building the capacity of our folks, and we want, and their team is all legal minds who are trained specifically in Title IX. So they're Title IX experts.
So they're trying to basically Title IX experts?
Yes.
And it's basically, where are they located out of?
They're located out of Tennessee. Their website is ICS Lawyer. Let me make sure I have it. Their information is accessible online. And as I'm looking through this, I'm looking at some of the other training that we've done. We also did training with bus drivers so that they know how to report. And I don't have my RAT card in here, but we created RAT cards so that they know to report or with regards to mandated reporting as well as Title IX. So all buses now are equipped with that little RAT card.
Well, that's fine. We got that. Also, and you are not, you said you are not the only Title IX administrator in the district.
No, I said I'm the Title IX coordinator for the district. We have trained Title IX investigators as well as decision makers. So our policy and the law requires that we have people who are trained in specific areas. So you have one Title IX coordinator for the district, and then you have to have investigators. We chose to get an investigator trained for each school versus just having district level investigators because we wanted to be handled at the lowest level first to make sure that if it does not need to rise to the level, they have the ability to decipher and understand in their school. So each building has one person that they can go to say, I'm thinking that this may be Title IX or not, and then they can work with me with regards to that. And then the decision makers have to be trained in all of the areas because they have to be the final decision makers along with myself.
And my question is asking you about the coordinator, because my question is, if you're the only one, if you're the only person trained in it as a coordinator, or if you're not reachable or something happens, then what else?
I get the law still come in.
Right. What's the, what's the?
So I'm the only person that's trained as a Title IX coordinator, but I'm designated as the district's Title IX coordinator.
Gotcha.
So we have one person that it flows through,
Right.
but we make sure that in order for us to say that we build our capacity, it's important that we have people. So Mr. Hunt is trained with regards to the HR side of this, because when he's dealing with adults, got a number of people that are trained in the system investigators as well. So we all have an understanding of the process, but in order for it to be a designated point of contact, I'm the district's point of contact.
Also, in terms of that, one thing that does concern me is when you almost feel like you have the information and you giving me, you said 4 through 9, page 4 through 9.
That's just the definition.
Right, that's right, the definition. But in terms of what is like on a consistent flow, if someone was to ask what exactly is Title IX, what does that look like? Where is that written at? I mean, because my mind is thinking, and you said, okay, well, this regular level Title IX, it can be a whole thing. So my question is, what does that look like? And
That was written in 1972, and every time that it is updated, that's when, that site is updated. So I don't know I can't tell you exactly what site it is, but there's the Title IX regulations or federal regulations.
Oh, no, not that. Maybe I'm saying, maybe I'm not actually, I'm actually different. I think I'm watching my words. In terms of detail, in terms of deciding what is a Title IX action, they bring it to you and you make that decision.
Yes.
And so my question is, based upon what, and do you have is there a checkoff list? A checkoff list that says it can be this, and I heard you say a couple of words, but where can I find the writing to understand that?
It's in the policy, but it's also available on, if you search Title IX, the federal website will give you that information. So in order for us to be able to say that it is severe, pervasive, objective, and physical, and those are defined, it's written. So that has to be the criteria that it has to meet in order for us to be able to consider it as Title IX.
Right, and it must meet each exactly one of those things that you just said.
The three combined.
Right, yes. So you can't have just two of them.
Correct.
It has to have two real, and that's every single situation that y'all consider.
That falls under that.
That falls under that. Right, okay, yeah. And I'm trying to clarification from someone asked. I want to know for myself moving forward. What is the Title IX? I'm trying to get something.
And this is with regards to sexual harassment and sexual offenses. But there's also a, that we will be working on in the near future, which is equity in athletics, which also falls under Title IX. So that is a whole other humongous piece that we're working on that will also be included in this policy. That is not finalized yet. That's in its infancy stage. That's the number
You all stem from the 1970s. Evolving that. So it shifted in two parts. But originally it was so.
All the time, got this athletic, director on board, and he's gonna be working through HR. Because athletics does get these adults. Mostly at some point, also with students, and we have Title IX as well. So that's going to coordinate efforts so that everything hits all lines up, so that we don't miss the beat. So he's going to be working closely with this team as well.
Our goal is to create systems so that it's not just a one and done. The system continues to live on through the district so that no matter who's in the position, who's in the seat, they're able to take this system and it is applicable as we continue so that we are meeting the requirements of the law.
Okay, just one last question. So, let's just say I'm a parent, okay, and something happens to my child, and so I, report it, and we send them to Title IX. Okay, rises to the level that we're gonna investigate. Meanwhile, the child that has victimized my child can't be held to the code of conduct, right?
And initially, yes, that's correct.
So my concern is this lag time. So the child that is inflicted any type of,
But we have to put some kind of measures in place. So that was something we didn't talk about.
okay, so but there is something to address. This child is just going about his or her daily and while this investigation, but
Supportive measures could go up to emergency removal.
okay.
So if you as a parent level of Title IX and it is egregious enough that we determine that there's a safety issue,
Yes.
we have the ability as Title IX through Title to say, we gotta do an emergency removal and we may transfer a student, we may look at alternative placement temporarily. Exactly, so it's not a disciplinary infraction, it's temporary, a temporary placement.
Okay, thank you.
For safety.
I'm just concerned there might have been some lag,
Yes.
as a parent.
And we talk with parents about a couple of things when we meet with them. We talk about the supportive measures, what the investigation process will look like, and whether they want to do an informal resolution, which means the two parties make a decision as to, with the support of our team, how do we want to resolve this? Or they can say, you know what, I want to file a formal complaint, and that's what goes through the full process. So not everything takes that long. But sometimes it comes, it's, you know what, I just want to have an informal resolution, and that can be both employee and student. So the informal resolution gives an opportunity for it to be documented that this situation is being resolved informally, but they have the ability to come back if they change their mind and follow through.
Thank you so much.
Are they contracted,
Yes, sir.
sort of term, the whole term?
Well, if we renew it, we renew the act.
Or is
They are great. And I sent them a message and said, hey, do you mind getting on a call with our team? They looked at all of the procedures that we were putting in place with regards to what we were doing. Gave us advice with regards to that. Here's what you want to think about. So they have been a phenomenal resource. Serve on their, they started a Establish Leadership Council for Title IX administrators, and I serve on that as well.
Right?
That's one.
Yes. I mean, this looks huge.
bigger?
Yeah.
Well, it's such a. All right, let's not go there. Next item, HR4 staff contracts. Assuming that's you, Ms. Walton?
So what we, have done this AR is to tighten it up. We do not have the social media. And we have been, and Wendy, you can chime in at any point if you want. We work with our legal counsel, and we've been advised that we should not put in place social media policy, but we cover everything in our staff. And the two key things would be does the action of an employee individually or to include their personal social media, you include anything that they post or say. Does we have the right to interfere if it, one, is disruptive to the day or the school, or if it impairs that employee's ability to be effective at their jobs? So I'll give you an example. Someone makes a post and it is wow crazy out there. Does that employee come back to the building? Staff is in an uproar, students are in an uproar, then they have affected the way that the school operates. So it then becomes a disruption to the building. We can take action. It doesn't matter what they say and where they say it. They can write it on a napkin and put it around, sign their name to it. It becomes our concern when it affects us within the day or the- and then can they be effective as an employee if they made some kind of comment that causes other staff members to look at them and say, I don't think this person really needs to be employed. They cannot be in the class with these students. And so that's when we can actually investigate and take it on as a project.
Because one of the things I think depends a lot, there's a lot of who's on right now. Everyone's like, oh, they have no right, they shouldn't be on here.
That's
But if they're, where is free speech, like I'm all about having a social media policy. So hypothetically, someone likes a post on gun rights and everyone's like, focus, gets upset and there's an uproar and students like, which they have been doing in college campuses for sure, petitioning to have them removed, refusing to take the class, booing them. Does this social media policy just says basically you'll handle it or do you cannot?
It depends on what we do. As a district, how we just think of what was the level of that they caused with their post, with their comments. If it has disrupted school and you have teachers who are saying, I don't want to be in the same building, then we have to do something because then it's disrupted an entire. It can disrupt kids. I don't want to be in that teacher's classroom because this is. And all this is done in conjunction with you. Sure.
I know you said for sure. Yeah. I appreciate those.
But you can have, you can. You're on that nature, so.
What part is a slippery slope?
Well, it's a. We just was looking.
What's the, can you say more about that?
That means, let's just say this. Just makes a statement that might be controversial in the eyes of the students, includes like Mr. Jones and some students are very upset because he took that side of the argument, extended to another class or another teacher, or another teacher might be in disfavor of Mr. Jones's politics or whatever, and everything snowballs into a divided group of students and teachers about what he said. You're gonna remove him from the classroom because of that. Well, I think that's you're gonna run into another person more problem with that.
It doesn't mean you're gonna go and dismiss the teacher. It means that we have a right to confront. That's what it means. Okay. And you have a right to confront teachers now with a lot of things that they violate.
I agree.
But up until this point, we've been very cautious about saying anything to anyone about social media.
Okay, so this is primarily directed for social media.
Correct. And it gives us the opportunity to invest and let employees know that we have the right to focus on what we do in and out of the organization. It doesn't mean if someone's controversial, we'll snatch them out of the classroom. Don't ever.
But I see it really,
I think
I mean, the political arena we're in now, you're gonna stifle a teacher from thinking any kind of political thing.
We have instructional services, ARs that talk about teaching controversial materials and political positions. And so I think what we really are looking at is, teachers are expected to remain neutral and teach kids to think, present both sides, and allow kids to think. And what we're talking about, the spirit of this AR has to do with the purpose of the educational institution and maintaining the integrity of the learning environment.
But actually, I hear what you're saying, but wholeheartedly, that when you're talking about one, we talking about going after, or what, we not even going after, we talking about entertaining, talking about the social medias. First off, teachers, the books that went right in, we catching it, we catching how we getting teachers. Well, that's the first thing the teachers talking about there. They are rights in the social media. Secondly, when is the quick jab as when what she just said is imagine I'm at a teacher, I said, oh, I think abortion, while women should not have abortion rights. Imagine how controversial that is. And now you may say, oh well, that's not something we're gonna touch. Or no, they said that. But you may have some parents who come to a board meeting and you get 8 or 5 of them coming there, then you're gonna pull that person in. And then that creates
during an orientation. Therefore, what you post, and you caution them to be careful. Comment on everything and that they post. For instance, politics. You don't know.
And I may be true, but if we get 8 or 9 parents coming to a board meeting, you can better believe we don't have the time to pull them in. I'm sure you're gonna pull them in just because of the fact. Now I won't say because we're the public view now, but there have been issues where something can happen on social media, and they have been pulling because people have made big issues about someone's political or something that they have somebody.
So they make a lot of noise about it. It's what Ms. Walton said was when it disrupts the learning environment. So if something were to happen in Hilton Head Island Middle School and you have learning that has stopped because you've got teachers that are distracted by this, you got students that are distracted by it. At some point, there has to be a conversation where human resources comes in to say, okay, we got to talk about this. And how do we resolve this? Because our goal is to get the school operation back to normal versus just allowing this, whatever the situation may be, whether it's a controversial post, a tweet.
But I think also I think what you're saying is great, but I am concerned a little bit. I think that I've been advocating for social media. I think a lot of this is good. There was a medical school, I think in Michigan, and they had one of the professors who won an award to speak at the White Coat, and she had supported pro-life activities. 70% of the students got up and walked out. So that is going to be disruptive to the learning environment, and we live in an activist age. So what I want to make sure is that, okay, if it turns out that a teacher supported one of these controversial areas, abortion, gun rights, LGBTQ, whatever it is, and students are protesting because teenagers, man, like to pretty discussion right now. There has to be a two-way process where the students have to say this is inappropriate. If it's now we're talking about, I think it's appropriate to say in a classroom you cannot teach a book and say, well, she got what she deserved, or the Holocaust was a hoax. Whatever you can't say that in a teaching environment. But if you're making political statements in social media and people are reading it and disrupting, I worry about that because that is happening nationwide.
It is, and the climate is very wrong right now. We will not do anything unless we have legal advice. So this gives us teeth. Right now we have.
I mean,
We're doing an administrative legislation for us to protest.
that's what I'm saying. It has to be like the other side. Like you can't get up and leave your English classroom because you don't like the fact that they donated to this political campaign, which is something that they're trying to do.
And so I see that have something got the district up so that we would be able to say, hey, let's have a conversation about what was just posted and brought to our attention by 10 parents or whatever. And we've got to have something for the district. And as we know several years ago, a couple of years ago, he did something to. That's why I asked you to say more about the slippery slope, because what I'm finding is that these are to help protect the district, that we do have some recourse to at least start the conversation.
I guess what I'm saying too, and I want to make sure that in the social media that we don't come down too hard on the side of stifling free speech.
I don't think that's the
The last one of that was talking about the bike slippery slope. That I would advise. Deal with, we say, there's a threat at law enforcement. If it's something that she would need to be invested, law enforcement. He went down basically saying that depending on what is there, he was going to basically you let law enforcement know that.
We can't allow law enforcement to, law enforcement won't do anything, but you can call law enforcement and say, Mr. D made an irrational choice on social media. Now, if he made his own, that's different. But just with regard to a staff member, so I have a number of social media platforms. If I were to post something controversial on my post and it disrupts the district office, Ms. Walton now has the right to say, Ms. Swinton, we need to talk about this post. That's what it is. And it's not saying you need to either come on one side of the decision or the other side. It is, we have an opportunity as a human resource department and as a district to be able to have a conversation with that staff member with regard to that, to help them understand how this is disruptive to the environment. Not, you need to take it down, you need to change your stance on it, because we don't, I mean, that's your personal opinion.
But I think
we starts some kind of opinion about what was posted. Right. I mean, I think you're setting yourself up for some legal, ramifications when you start asking people in an independent sense to look at what they're saying outside of the realm of the. Yeah.
We did a social media teacher. We link the kids and name the students' names. What's calling again? Yeah. So they did that. You can't make that statement. You definitely can't put your student's name. Post your student's name. That's a real problem. So that is when we vote. Yeah.
And this is all this stuff.
That's it.
What do you have to record calling you with all that?
No, because.
Why not?
Huh?
Why would you?
It's outside of
I mean, why would you? I mean, yes. Why are the students that they isn't that? And that's it. Somewhere in that. Call that person. I don't care if it's inside or outside.
Absolutely right. I think Campbell's point, up until now, we don't have a way social media is so pervasive and we have rather bizarre posts where people are making, accusations that are unfounded, whatever it was. There was a community policy where you can come in. The only thing that caught my attention, I think that, Mr. Smith, Mr. Campbell and I are kind of agreement in is in the current environment, students can be disruptive for reasons that are not fair to criticize a teacher. And so if you guys are saying you're going to call them and let's talk about this post, I would be I don't want teachers to feel like they can't take controversial opinions outside of the teaching hours. Not, I hate middle school students, or like I hate a certain race or gender. You know what I mean? Like, not like that. So I hate a certain candidate. Right? I hate everything about Nancy Mace, and so people, my friends are in there mad and they protest and they disrupt the school, but that's not something we should do. And I don't think that's what we're doing.
We're not.
Personally, 10 years from now or 5 years from now, that policy might correct someone who is calling the mail. Well, I mean, that's where you're on the slippery slope. You are interpreting it one way now to opening up a wide interpretation.
AR is disruption.
That's not definable. I mean, disruption meaning what? That a bunch of black students come in and don't like the tie I'm wearing, and they make a statement and they decide they're gonna walk out of the room and disrupt the school. How you interpret that disruption? That's open. So the whole, in fact, you're addressing something that can snowball into disruption. And in your mind might not even be disruption, but it snowballs into disruption and everybody expects you to address it. Policy says you have to address it. That's my concern about
Mrs.
that.
Fidrich.
Yeah, no, I just, you know, I'm very literal sometimes, but it says that the personal life, well, if it impairs the employee's ability to effectively perform his or her job responsibilities. That's what we are all about. Are you doing your job?
For that,
And so what I'm concerned about is that we had nothing. We had no social media policy. We had nothing that says, please act in a manner in which Beaufort County School District wants you to so that you can be an effective teacher or an effective employee. That's what this does.
Students is actually employing same professional standards in their use of social media as they are for any other.
You know, so actually,
that's a lot of what we use it.
we need this. So,
But what happens is that you know, that. When you come 10 years later and say, well, you know, it's like something I'm aware of. You come 10 years later and say, well, okay, well, when you signed the down line about this right about, we working here, then that's the same thing. I mean, when we signed it then, it's always, that number it opens the Pandora's box to.
William, there was nothing when I signed the contract that told me how I had to enter in the Beaufort County School District. It was how many days you're gonna work. You didn't even know what school you might work in. You hope it's good. You know what I mean? But no, there was nothing. And so, so what concerned me is we have had nothing. And we've been talking for a year and a half about social media policy. They received legal advice that said it shouldn't be strictly just a social media, it should be staff conduct, all right? And so if a teacher cannot do his or her job effectively, right, shouldn't there be some way to engage that teacher through without
Performance.
That's what this basically would be, is a conversation about your performance. You can't.
But you talk about performance. So. We open that.
It's the effects of that. If the effects of that social media post, not the post itself. If the effects of the post render you worthless in your classroom or worthless in performing your job. It's not the post itself, it's the effects of the post.
Well, what time says it, what does that look like? Like you're not doing your job, what does that look like?
What it looks like is that you get all of a sudden this massive stirring of people that, yes, we have.
You had it.
The teachers are doing this with each other, the demonstration is like,
Yes,
what's going
yes.
on?
What, yeah. But that's the problem. That had going on with the bad divorce. How do you know it's from social media? You can't pinpoint that.
No, but even so,
You can, okay, someone's doing this.
even so, the extension here is still a biased illegal extension of the use of social media. I'll go back to the 50s and 60s when educators, I've had the experience in the 70s, when educators were expected to dress in a certain manner. Men
So back further, we couldn't even make it.
were expected to wear a tie onto the job. But there was people pushing that envelope because they have freedom to not wear a tie. And there were teachers who certainly resented those who were from a professional level in that building. Because we not like a hippie, and this person does not belong with us. You know, a lot of students don't want to go to these classes. Yes, and your intent now would be the same kind of disruption. And I'm saying, stretching it beyond, you know, what's here.
Up until this point, we had in the policy. An employee's personal life is not our concern until they bring it within the school. You bring it inside your building, then it becomes our concern. Perfect example. Inappropriate relationship outside of school between two employees. They get angry with each other and they're yelling and screaming in hallways. We can deal with it.
It's.
If we know in that and a post on social media.
Yes.
Brings disruption. in
We're writing that staff.
Okay,
Yeah, it is.
was ready to get down with,
Yes, it is.
hold on.
Look,
I think that the more news, the more we discuss. I think this is a bigger deal than an AR, but at the same time, this is an AR. It's for our information only. This is what the superintendent wants to kind of for the staff this time. So I don't think we're going to resolve anything. So my assessment of this would be that one thing says, I think disruption of the classroom it's a questionable standard on doing something given the current. I would like to go ahead and move on since so let's go on to AR, what's the next one? There's HR 16.
Before we end the day, we do have to go back and.
Oh, sorry.
We'll do it. Yeah. So the next one is staff leaves and absences.
It's
This one is real simple. It's a new law. A family, and we also added in providing that unused sick days and sick days at retirement. So that's the major change.
any questions?
can we hold that again?
Okay, so. And one is staff leave absences, is it rated? Then page 7. Reimbursement for unused accumulated sick.
Oh, what about, giving your sick leaves to other people?
We don't have that. It is not something that we would look into. Our advice, if an employee has to pay, I have 96 days, and I want to share with you. I give her 50 of them, I'm going to be taxed. Because it's a value to me, and I'm going to. I'll use the days that you told me for someone. I want employment attorneys to stay over the phone. Give them away sick. Because we have a sick bank. We have a sick bank. We have a sick bank. Yes.
First, you have to get back on the sick.
Well, no, I understand. I understand. It's something.
That gives the result.
So the sick bank is. It's August, something.
Okay, so our final AR, HRS 51 pregnancy and lactation.
Oh, hold on. I want to talk about it.
Hold on. Unless the committee wants to try to question the.
No, actually, wait a minute.
This is not an upward action. So we're going to move on to the next one, pregnancy and lactation.
In terms of what she's saying. Because I have a ton of people asking this question, and this is my time.
Sick bank is not already given. Even though towns looking to bring up for the sick bank AR and not really doing. It's an informational thing only, and it is, we've got a lot left to cover, so we're going to move on. If you have a question on the sick bank AR, we can have an email question this Walton. We can bring it up.
What would be true?
You have out of this committee, and the third committee is moving on to pregnancy and lactation, HRS 51. Ms. Walton, could you go ahead and say that?
I think you want to do that one?
Sure, yes. Thank you, board members. Pregnancy and lactation, what we've done in this administrative regulation is just updated with the law that pregnancy as well as false pregnancy, termination of pregnancy, we do not discriminate against any employee on the basis of their status of pregnancy. And we have leave procedures for our employees who need to take leave under our Family Medical Leave Act. And we also added here that employees who think they may have been discriminated against based on pregnancy or related condition of pregnancy, including termination of pregnancy, may file a complaint through our grievance procedures. We added the section about giving the break time or meal time for employees to express milk. We added the new rules from the Office of Civil Rights discrimination based on pregnancy and related conditions. That was in October of 2022. And we added the Beaufort County School Board's Coherent Governance Manual. And I wanted all of you to know, board members, that at the topping out ceremony for Robert Smalls, I was able to sit next to the architects, and they showed me the plans for the 2 lactation rooms that are going to be included as part of the Robert Smalls School, and they're going to be very comfortable for our employees, and will give them privacy and have a place to express milk. So I'm very grateful for that. They have made it's going to be very beautiful and comfortable for our employees. And we want to encourage that for our nursing mothers. So, thank you.
Any questions on lactation and pregnancy?
Is this AR? What is it?
This is HR, yes, it's an AR, Human Resources 51, I believe.
I just want a question, so I'm not afraid to ask questions.
Okay, I do have one. So is there new regulations coming down that, father would be allowed to leave?
Yeah.
Is that part of this? Did I see it? What is it? I'm sorry.
That's the PPO.
I think it was in red.
It's in there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the regular.
It's actually in HR 16.
Section staff leave.
On the staff leave, okay, versus with the pregnancy one.
Yeah.
Paid parental leave. Thank you. Thank you. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then we have this Walton review, it concludes the review of the 4 HRs. You have then explanation of grievance process, and I believe this was something that you specifically wanted to have address. I don't know if you want to ask questions or you want this one to give the presentation.
It was both of us, but yeah, she.
Yeah, I concur with you. I just know that you specifically expert. So if you had something you wanted to start off with.
So here's what we're gonna do today. When you ask, where does the teacher go, where does the employee go, if they have to, or grievance, or complaint. And we can't give you just, okay, you go to teacher, or you go to, or you go to teacher. It is a group response, because you have different complaints, you have events, complaints, you have grievances, and then you have Title IX work. So what we're gonna do today is, the team will talk about what is a complaint, what is event, what is it, what's the reporting mechanism, and then how does that all work in notifying an employee. Let them know, if I have a concern, here's what. So it should be pretty clear. I'm gonna let Matt start, and then I think Reggie, and then
Yeah, so the big question, obviously, where do employees go when they have problems and concerns? And before we examine this, and I tell you the reporting mechanism, we always look at this in 2 different ways. We look at, are there internal building measures? Does it fall within something that can be handled at the department level or at the school building level? And that's really an informal procedure. We have, there are mentors in the buildings, there are department heads, team chairs, a variety of people within the department or building that can help problem solve, so to speak. So when employees have a problem that comes out, it's something that doesn't need to be formally filed. Who else in your building can you go to, and what other mechanisms can you use to try to resolve the problem? Then the next part, on this other side, we have our external policy measures, and those are our administrative regulations. That becomes a more formal process, and that always includes the school administrator or district administrator. So, Alice mentioned this, the nature of our complaints, fall into these four types. And the first one is venting. And sometimes employees are frustrated or they're dissatisfied and they'll call either district office, they go into their principal's office and they just want to be heard. And a lot of times the venting itself is the resolution for that particular case. Sometimes they have complaints and complaints can come in, a variety of ways. They can be about a variety of things that don't rise to the level of grievance. For example, I'm a teacher, I'm upset about discipline in school. Call Mr. Dees, and it's Mr. Dees, I have this complaint that I want to raise about discipline not being fairly vetted out in the school. Mr. Dees is going to tell me, well, this is what you need to do. So I'll let him explain that in a moment here, but that would be an example. And then grievances, we have that defined in HRS 15. And so we have grievances, and then again, PE already presented pretty extensively on Title IX. So that's our fourth type of complaint. And these are our reporting mechanisms. And I think the takeaway from this meeting is going to be key for everybody to know is there's several ways to report. We have the administrative regulation page that has the reporting form on it. We also have the faculty intranet under employee forms. And so under employee forms, you can find both the Title IX form there, and you can also report the complaint. On CLAC link, there's that little tiny lowercase I. That's an icon for eyesight. So when employees click that will take them to a digital web form for eyesight. And then we also have see something, say something. And this place is more tips used by students, but sometimes see something, say something is used when a student is complaining against a teacher or a staff member. We also have the district Title IX website form, and then of course in person. And sometimes that's on the phone. Sometimes people come to the district office and they have, they want to be heard at that point in time. And then once we gather the nature of what their concerns are, we can kind of guide them to the reporting mechanisms and then into the processes, formal and informal. And I think these are very important considerations as well, as expressed in our admin regulations 15. And Kiki mentioned this as well with Title IX, is we always want to have the resolution take place at the lowest administrative level. That is key because you have to have a process for a low administrative level person to handle that so that there's a place for an appeal if it comes to that. The second thing is that we encourage employees at all levels to make sure that they document, they date, they timestamp, they talk about what was talked about in the meeting. So even if I'm a principal in a building and somebody comes in and they have a concern that they just want to vent, I would encourage that employee to still say, on December 14th, I talked to principal such and such, and this was what it was about. Because if it resurfaces again, then that becomes a continuum to say, I've done this and gone through these channels and my problem is still not being resolved. At which point then we can guide them to the reporting mechanisms. And so on slide number 7, and this is what I'll walk you through. Slide number 7 just shows a process flow chart here. And I hope that this is easy to follow. That orange box is where we start. The employee raises a concern with the immediate supervisor within 10 days of the occurrence. And that time frame comes from HRS 15 and 11. The complaint is filed via our reporting mechanisms. And then one of three things happens. Sometimes it's an informal complaint where a team leader or a supervisor, a department chair, somebody can manage that resolution. Meeting is held, the complaint is resolved, and maybe an amenable or an amicable solution is found on the parties. It could be a level 1 grievance, and level 1 grievance, all of that is found on the HRS 15. And level 1 grievance would be at the supervisor level. The complaint is received, the meeting is arranged, an investigation takes place, and then there's a decision that's made, and that decision may be appealed. And if the decision is appealed, that comes to a level 2 grievance. There are 3 ways to get to a level 2 grievance. The first way is an appeal of the level 1. The second way is if this employee supervisor is the person against whom the complaint is filed. And then the third way is that the employee does not want or doesn't feel that their current supervisor is able to handle the complaint. And based on HRS 15, that the decision of the superintendent or his or her designee, that decision is final and does not.
So next we have, this is just a flow chart so that you can understand the Title IX K through 12 process. The Title IX applies to both K-12 and collegiate level, but this gives a flow chart of what that looks like when a complaint is filed, the supporting measures are initially given, emergency removal is available if necessary. It talks about whether they want to file a formal complaint or whether they want to not file a formal complaint. Do I, as the Title IX coordinator, agree to the supporting measures, or do I have within my purview the ability to sign the formal complaint on behalf of the complainant? If it rises to that level, then if it goes through a formal complaint process, the notice of allegations are provided, the investigation occurs, there's a resolution, and then there's the ability to appeal. And then that last box at the left is the informal resolution process. So this gives you a small brief snapshot of the process as it happens with regards to Title IX.
Is that the particular?
I think it's even if they're deep.
So, from the committee, do you, either of you have questions regarding the business process?
I
And this is going to have those that you address.
can see where freaking be the district administration.
So,
Are you talking about their principal or you or me?
I'm talking you
They can probably.
or, yeah, or the superintendent or, yeah, or other department. They can file a grievance with, if they're filing a grievance against you, who would it go to?
How many ones do you get per year? 36? About 15.
All right, so, District, I'm gonna ask the question, you and I talked at some similar viewpoints.
This is like a off of, family on the was. You know, what the, a group is going to continue, what's that? Okay. In terms of the the level 2 may not be appealed. Why is that? But to me, that is that's not an national impression on people there because that's my question is in terms of on level 2 that people can't read the super. I mean, people cannot go beyond the superintendent. So
People have gone through level 1,
Right.
and then so that they will appeal, it gets to level 2.
and I hear that, but the superintendent and everyone under him still works with the board, so therefore you should be able to bring that grievance to the board.
So, Mr. Smith, and I hear you say that a grievance for an employee does not need to stop at the superintendent, that the board needs to hear every employee grievance that they're not satisfied with the results that they get from. So if I file a grievance and I'm not happy with it, then the board should hear every one of those grievances.
Hopefully whoever the superintendent is diligent enough to where all those grievances won't make it to the board. But the ones that do, then to me, yes, because I in other districts and other places that I've been, I'm kind of looking at where the grievances and some of that stuff it does go to the board because basically to some degree, if you talk about Title IX, that stuff could be possible. That stuff could be possible litigation, and so if the board can work it out, then I don't see a problem with it because you know, to some degree, you may, someone could say, well, you know, they're looking on one side, and that also shows like that we did our due diligence, that we tried everything that we could do to work that situation out.
So let me ask the question. When, and I think this is one way, if the superintendent makes a determination, there can be a filing of wrongful termination or it should not come to the board, right? So isn't it not an implement where the board would not get involved in a overall superintendent because it would compromise? I think it does compromise legal. So because we're judicial, quasi judiciary, that's right. So there is a way for employees to bring it to above the superintendent's head, but they would have to do it through a lawsuit, I would think.
A certified employee. A certified employee would bring it to the board and bring it to the board. Right. Classified employee cannot, because classified employees have more employees. So they don't know based on board policy. The board wants to change it. They want to be all agree with it. Then the board change. But we are working from the board policy. That's why the state office.
Certified employees can't bring it to the board.
Termination.
When did that go into effect, you know?
Since 1974.
That's not, I mean,
Teacher employee, this one, the teacher.
Yeah.
1974. And
You
the
don't-
change.
didn't wait for me. I got terminated back in 19,
Did you ask for it?
to the superintendent. Say. And I gave that was the final say. Said, can't appeal it to the board.
And he violated your rights. See?
So,
What's the statute of limitations on that?
Well, we placed in HR at that, we had every working in HR, teacher, that went to the board.
They're recognized.
Recommended for non-renewals. So,
yeah. At least some. He didn't got a hearing. Yeah, it was good job.
So yeah, Public Record Act, teachers should know, they can. And I guess if they felt they've been treated unfairly.
It would depend on what the situation is. I can't just fall under Title IX without meeting.
I'm just saying, some sort of functional thing, yeah.
Also, you know, and how we continue to say this. I don't believe that all grievances over to the level of the court. Yes, sometimes you do get, you will get some people going, you just won't satisfy. That's just the reality of it. Some people you just won't satisfy. But within the scope of that, there are some people sometimes where you can want to protect staff, or some people can feel that's how you want to view it, or you're not going to see it that way. And I think that we know give that option to have someone to get that fair shake. And if that means coming to the court, then I have to see, no problem with that. I just don't think that agreement should stop at the superintendent. That's because to me, and I've had someone tell me, I've been told going beyond that. That's what wants to you're gonna get fired. So that can be a bit intimidating. But if the step is already there, and you say, I want to go to the, I mean, you say, you're in HR, so you're not in their sheet. You can't.
But I'm in their sheet. What I'm saying is, I'm in their sheet.
And I already want to. When I'm in their sheet, what I'm saying.
Most of that, their resolutions. You ask them, what is your resolution? Your resolution is on the principal terminated. Okay. we don't do that. So if they don't get what they want, when they ask for the principal terminated, that's gonna come to you guys. And what you're gonna do is go back through that entire investigation again to come back to the same resolution. So this is all that we investigate as thoroughly as we possibly can. And it's a fair resolution. And they still say, I'm not satisfied. Who do I need to go to next? That's gonna come to you guys. Again, the resolution. I want to stay where I am, move the principal. Get the principal out of the school because the principal is. And I'm okay with it. I'm okay as a board member. Well, I'm okay with the parent and I'm okay with the team. Because at that point, then we make a decision, let them know, no, or now you want to do it, now you want to go and go the legal route and you want to get a attorney. As a board, we maximize everything that we can do in the district. We try in every way we can to help you to listen to you. But at this point in time, we just can't meet you at this junction. We just can't meet that. I don't feel that the board is meeting the least. And I have several people who have said that they feel that sometimes things are one sided. So when you're giving them that fair shot, they say, okay, well, you said that the commander gives you or the people in the staff gives you, okay, we're listening. And that's what we said, well, listen, we listen and we heard your cry. But at the end of the day, this is what it is.
So when that happens, if I come and I'm going through level 1, level 2, and I disagree with the decision, now I'm being heard by the board, my expectation should be what from the board? To be heard?
Well, let's
And that's extreme what Randy said. I can understand you saying, no, that's out of the way.
It's not.
But most times people lose it. Or is being reprimanded themselves. So they don't want the resolution isn't true. But someone else is deceiving my own butt. That's why I'm grieving. I'm grieving the punishment to do hand it down. That's why most people grieve. They don't grieve something because they want this guy fired. They grieve something that put them down. You got to look at the grievances. I mean, somebody might grieve and want the principal fired. I guarantee you, most of your grievances because I'm disappointed with the way I'm treated. So we make the separation between a grievance and a complaint that has been in AR. And that's what I'm saying. If it's based on race, creed, color, religion, that's totally different. Well, give me an example of a grievance. I want the principal. I'll give me an example of a grievance. The principal made a comment about my race. You can't teach white kids because you're black.
Because of your age.
That is a grievance. That's a grievance. That's now we have to change it again. So now, but if you don't like my process and my procedure in the school, if I say, hey, you need to sign in every morning so I know what time to get here, and the teacher shows up late, that is a complaint. Okay. And we send that right back to the school to give the school an opportunity to fix it. Let's go back to the grievance. Okay. I agree with that in 44, in that statement. And it gets to you guys. What do you ask them what they want?
Sure, what permitting did you see this? That's all I'm reading.
And they said they want the principal fired. I can show them that. Policy, a meeting with the principal and parents and HR, those things are put on the table.
That's not to say that they're not on the table. There are some that go to the extent of what I want is the highest sanction.
We don't want them out. Yeah. But that's not, those are not the numbers. I mean, those are not the situation we are talking about in terms of going to the board. It goes to the board. If I expect a grievance to come to the board because that person is not satisfied with how you responded from. a district employer standpoint, and I wanna go to the board to see if I can be justified a little bit different. That would mean firing a principal.
Have an employee who was a classified, who did not like the idea of where that person was assigned to. As a classified employee, you're an employee at will. That person did not like where they were assigned, and so therefore they wanted to grieve the process because they did not like where they were assigned. Choices were, this is where you're going to be assigned. So they didn't like it, so they wanted to grieve it, and they wanted it to go beyond superintendent. But
That's not.
But even, and that's.
Same thing with the teacher. Teacher did not like being assigned to a particular school, or they've been transferred, and so therefore they.
That's not one that I would expect to come.
But I'm saying, but that's what wants to come to the.
So if a teacher is fired, there's a process that it can come to the board. They can appeal, you're right? If they're grieving because a statement is made like that, you can always go to an attorney about, an employment attorney. Wait, I'm not done. The board has one employee, the superintendent. And the superintendent hires and recommends terminations and so on. And for us to get down into this area, in my opinion, that is way down into employment matters that are hire and fire a superintendent. Now, granted, we can always make recommendations, but yes. No, you're shaking your head no, or you said?
Actually, I am.
Okay, so that's just my 2 cents, and I think that should, maybe up to you guys. You want to institute a policy where the board gets involved in that. To me, that is not where.
We need to bring this meeting to an end. So here's what I'm going to propose, Mr. Smith. I propose that Ms. Walton and her team did exactly what we asked in terms of outlining the process, so it's now clear. I think what you need to do when we make this report is make a motion to the full board that we review the policy that allow the board to have a role in terms. We'll have to come up with some wording or something, and then let's have this discussion with the full board. I think that I will bring this presentation forward. I really do think it's helped me hear from constituents about this sort of thing. And at least now I know the steps. And I appreciate the differentiation between the level 1. I feel like I did gain some insight. I think this is a separate conversation that take it to the full board because A, we gotta go. B, I think that we checked off the agenda. I think that really is the same. But we're not going to get anything accomplished.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. So yeah, to that extent, let us do this. I'm not going to get future topics because I think our next meeting will be after the new board seat. I don't know what that's going to look like. So if you've got future topics, we can do it by email. You'll email me or Robin, who the chair of this committee, 2023. And then I would like to take a moment to recognize both of my committee members for all their hard work. Oh, yeah.
And recognize.
Can we get a motion to, I know the minutes? So all in favor? Okay. But thank you guys both, and Ms. Walton and her team, thank you for bringing. I really did enjoy the presentation. It's very clear. I like that.
You will probably come back to the top. You can something based on needs and all, so.
And in terms of that, they won't all be at one time, I'm sure, right? Okay, yeah, because I was going to say, the last time we bought your whole cabinet, that was our age one. That was a lot.
And I guess. So move to adjourn. Thank you, Robin.